Welcome to NAGLREP Success, a podcast series featuring the talents of LGBT real estate agents and allies who inspire the LGBT community. Today we will learn about the LGBT movement from a mother's perspective. Our guest, Lisa Phair, is a top producing agent with Coldwell Banker West Shell in Cincinnati. She's also a mom to 3 kids and now a staunch ally and advocate. You're going to really enjoy these next few minutes with Lisa Phair. Lisa, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, David.
So let's get right to it with your kids. You've got a recent high school graduate, Grace. Your youngest is Kira, but it's your middle son, Leo, who has really changed your family's life.
Leo is a bright-eyed, blonde-haired, very typical 10-year-old boy. He loves to play with his friends and ride his bike and play baseball and basketball and Minecraft and all those things. And he's kind, and he also happens to be transgender.
And you learned about this at a pretty early age for him. It was kindergarten. It was 2014, which you describe as a tough year. It's when you joined Coldwell Banker, a new company, and then Leo went to kindergarten. Kindergarten is not supposed to be traumatic for a family, but for you, it really changed your life.
Yeah, that's right. It was definitely a tough year. I made a huge decision to switch brokerages. I had been with a local brokerage for 11 years at that point, and wanted a new opportunity and to grow my business. And so I changed to Coldwell Banker. And at the same time that I changed to Coldwell Banker, Leo started kindergarten. And at the time, my husband and I knew that we had what most people would refer to as a tomboy. But kindergarten was a time that that it really emerged that Leo wasn't, in fact, a tomboy. He, going to school was a point in his life where there were some hard gender lines that were drawn. And what I mean by that is he would go to a classroom and they would say boys in this line and girls in this line. And eventually he started coming home and asking what's the difference between boys and girls. And of course, there were lots and lots of other things that are not typical, which then, I began to realize over the course of that year with everything that was going on with him that we probably had something more than being a tomboy. But I didn't know anything about any resources because in 2014, being transgender was not anything that was ever discussed. It wasn't a hot button political issue. It wasn't mainstream media. No one talked about it. And I felt very lost and I felt very alone. And meanwhile, I was trying to grow my business and trying to keep this sort of secret as I navigated what this was going to be like with a lot of fear for Leo. And I had this business coach at Coldwell Banker, and he's absolutely amazing. His name's Steve Euler. And I remember one time we met, and we had a regular monthly meeting, and we sat down, and he wanted to talk about business, and I just broke down, and I started to cry, and I said, I have to tell you something because I can't concentrate right now. I think that one of my children is transgender, and with the most compassion maybe I had ever had in my life at that point, he looked at me and he said, it's okay. I have a son who's gay. And we spent the next hour talking about being parents and being afraid for our kids. And it was just a real moment that helped me to know that I had a place within Coldwell Banker.
The next year, your life really changed with a simple email from the company president, Joe King.
Yes, exactly. So, this still trying to navigate how to support a very young transgender child and trying to also just myself understand what gender identity was. I hadn't told very many people, but that spring 2015, it might have been April or May, but I remember opening my email and seeing a message from Joe King, and it was about Jim Obergefell, and it was about marriage equality. He sent an email to the entire company cheering Jim on and saying, no matter what the Supreme Court decides, we're on your side. Jim happened to, at that time, he was a agent in our company, and Cincinnati was the city that kind of started it all. Since then, you don't always think about Cincinnati being on the forefront of the movement, but it was actually the first city to ban conversion therapy. And, of course, everyone knows the birthplace of marriage equality. But another thing that Cincinnati does that many other cities don't is they have an amazing transgender clinic for children at the nation's number 2 pediatric hospital, which is Cincinnati Children's Hospital.
Did you get a chance to talk to Jim about Leo?
I did. Shortly after the marriage equality decision, when Jim published his book, he did a book signing in Cincinnati, and I went and stood in line with all these other people, and I bought 7 or 8 copies. And I asked Jim to, sign all of them for me. I wanted to make sure I preserved a copy for each of my children and for some of my friends. And Jim wrote a very kind message to Leo. He's only 10, so he doesn't get it at this point. But someday he's going to be able to get this book with an amazing message that, just is congratulating him on being himself. That means so much. I did want to say one more thing, David, just kind of going back to the message that Joe King had sent to the company. I knew he took a big risk that day. I couldn't have imagined at my former company or many, many other companies where a CEO takes a stand on something like marriage equality in such a public way. I knew that he was risking a lot of backlash from agents in the company, maybe the public as well. But I can tell you what that did for me is, again, it just solidified that I have a home at Coldwell Banker, that we are something that is so much bigger than realtors that are just out there buying and, helping people buy and sell homes.
Were you able to tell Joe your thoughts?
Yeah, it may have been a month or 2 after he had sent the email. We had a mixer for top agents, and it was a fairly small group. And I walked up to him and I said, I know the risk and the courage that it took for you to send an email like that. But I just want you to know that it has deeply impacted me. And I can't even express what it feels like as a mother and what it felt like at that time as a mother to know that there are companies who get it, and how amazing it was for me to be part of that company and to truly know who you work for. And that is one of the reasons why I think that our company is so special.
Lisa, if you are a leader of a real estate company, what can you learn from what you just said?
Well, I think if I were speaking to a group of leaders, I would encourage them to think about this from the perspective that being part of the LGBTQ movement is not just about the minorities that you serve who identify as LGBTQ. It's about their brothers, their sisters, their mothers, their uncles, their best friends. And when we have an opportunity to just truly treat people with the respect that they deserve, and I'm not just saying tolerance, I am saying being welcoming and naming that we are inclusive to all walks of life. I think that you not only grow your business, but people find a home in your company. And we all know that the name of the game is retention. It's about making sure that we are aligning with real estate agents that share the same values that we do. But we want to build long-term partnerships. And I can tell you, no realtor wants to ever, change companies. If they feel like they've got a successful partnership that really breeds business with their personal life, then I think that that's a relationship that's going to last for a long time.
I want to get a little bit more into your son and also your incredible work as an ally. But first, let's talk about the 6th annual NAGLREP National LGBT Real Estate Conference. It will be in one of America's favorite resort towns, Palm Springs, on October 1st through the 3rd. The conference will be another star-studded affair. We are expecting a complete sellout. We've got real estate CEOs all the way to leaders of the LGBT movement, including leadership from HRC, NGLCC, PFLAG, and amazing learning and networking events included. We will also be joined by the incredible Dennis and Judy Shepard, who will share their story as they continue to honor their late son, Matthew, with the iconic Matthew Shepard Foundation. It will be the largest LGBT and ally event in real estate history. Register for this can't-miss event today at NAGLREP.com. Lisa, we're in Pride, a time where Leo gets to shine, and he gets to see the world from a perspective that his older sister, Grace, usually sees. Can you explain that?
Yeah, this is something that I talk to people about a lot. Being the mother of 3 children who are very different gives me a perspective that maybe is a little bit unique. I started to notice after Leo socially transitioned that we would be out somewhere and maybe run into someone who knew us before, and they would look at Leo with a look of confusion on their face, trying to understand and process what it was they were seeing, since having this little boy on my side and perhaps having seen me previously with a girl on my side. And I began to really start to consider what the impact is for a child like Leo, who's young, and when he looks through his bright bluish green eyes out at someone and their face is confusion and misunderstanding and just negativity, that's very different than, say, my other child, Gracie, she's 18 and she's popular and she's beautiful, and the world looks at her and smiles, and they look at her and through her lens, she sees kind eyes. And I started to think about how that impacts Leo and as his self-esteem develops. And so what I love about Pride is it's a chance where I can take him by the hand and we can march through the streets of Cincinnati with people looking at him, smiling and cheering. And he has an opportunity then to see the world through his lens and get that affirmation and that love. And I think that it's a place where everyone belongs. It exudes love. So Pride is a pretty special thing in our house.
How difficult was it for you and your husband and the 2 kids to switch their way of looking at their sister to now a brother?
We all struggled. Perhaps my husband and I more than anyone else. And to be clear, we struggled because we didn't understand, and we struggled because of the fear of the way of what Leo's life would be, how the world would treat him. Being the parent of a transgender child, David, it's turned my world upside down in so many ways. It has given me the opportunity to really reflect and open my eyes to the hate and bigotry that others have experienced throughout their life. I quickly realized that the best way that ultimately I could support my child was to start advocating for his rights. So as a family unit, once we understood, and I credit the professionals at Cincinnati Children's Hospital for helping us along, when they told us that over 40% of transgender people attempt suicide, at that point, there was absolutely no question as to what we should do. We should support him. We should walk a step behind. We should allow him to explore who he is and his gender identity and give him the space to grow into the person he's intended to be. So my mission now is really to educate people like me about kids like him. You see, at 10 years old, currently, he's thriving. He's happy, he's healthy, he's accepted by his peers, he has a lot of friends, he's free. This is the question everybody asks, but yes, he is free to use the restroom at his elementary school that corresponds with his gender identity. And so because of all those things, there's no surprise that he's happy because he's free to be himself and he's treated just like any other boy. But I can't imagine the repercussions if my son was told that he couldn't use the restroom, or if he was misgendered or he was outed. I can't imagine a life where he would be segregated or isolated or forced to go from one end of his school to the other end of his school to use a nurse's restroom. It would change his life. It would change who he is. And I can't even imagine what his friends would say to him or what questions kids would have if he was treated in that manner. It would be absolutely devastating. So all of these things that I can't imagine, that I know they're happening to transgender children across America every single day. So that's the reason I fight. The absence of federal law, state laws, and school board policy leaves all of our LGBTQ children at high risk for abuse, discrimination, and death. For me, it's not a question. We certainly moved from a place of ignorance to advocacy.
You're involved with CHARC, you're involved with GLSEN, Equality Ohio, fair housing issues. You went all in, didn't you?
Yes, I felt like his life depended on it. You see, I support the Equality Act because I believe that all citizens of the United States deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and have equal protections under the law. And this includes Muslim and Latino and African American people and my gay and lesbian friends and my transgender child. So I feel like allies can no longer remain silent. We have to speak up. And I try very hard to work with other parents to encourage them to share their story and to encourage them to advocate for their children. I feel like it's the only way we are going to truly make change.
I want to touch on your real estate career, Lisa, but first I want to remind everyone about the benefits of being a member of NAGLREP, the National Association of Gay and Lesbian Real Estate Professionals. It starts with a profile on NAGLREP.com, which receives 75,000 unique visits a month and is the leading referrer of LGBT clients. In fact, 90% of those members with at least a year with NAGLREP close between 1 and 3 deals off of their profile referrals. Additionally, as you mentioned, Lisa, NAGLREP has played a major role in working in the elite circles of advocacy within the LGBT community to get the Equality Act passed in the House. There are currently 37 chapters around the nation, which allows the close-knit NAGLREP group of members to routinely host a variety of local networking and learning events. And of course, NAGLREP provides its members, like you, the capability to showcase leadership at the local, state, and national levels. Again, everyone, you can join NAGLREP at NAGLREP.com. Lisa, you recently became a NAGLREP member, and it came because of your manager sharing some information.
Yes, it was our broker, actually. Our broker, Sue Price, she sent an email to a group of agents in a variety of offices, and it had a link to NAGLREP's website, and it said, and she said, I would like to explore whether or not we would want to start a chapter here. And the group of realtors that she sent this to, we are all very active in our communities and with HRC and other organizations within the Cincinnati market. So she planned a meeting, and we all got together and started listening to what NAGLREP was and what the mission was. And I remember feeling really shocked, thinking, I've been a realtor for 16 years. And I have been doing advocacy work pretty consistently for 4 years. And how do I not know about this organization? It marries my passions between real estate and advocacy. So sitting down in this meeting without any hesitation, it was everyone was just unequivocally, yes, 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 how do we do this? So from that meeting, we planned within, 2 or 3 weeks, a mixer that we probably had maybe 60 to 75 people attend. And that was to introduce NAGLREP to Cincinnati agents. And we hope to take it from there to our first meeting to start with developing this chapter and the leadership within this chapter and growing it.
And you brought in some big name Cincinnati LGBT leadership, didn't you?
We did. We invited to speak that day Cincinnati City Councilman Chris Seelbach, and we invited to speak on fair housing, emerging fair housing issues. We invited Janice Jones from Housing Opportunities Made Equal. We also had Michelle Billings, who's our Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors president. And we brought in a amazing, popular anchor, morning anchor from our local television and news. Her name is Megan Mitchell, and she emceed all of it. So it was definitely a very fun event.
And you've stated previously that 70% of your business is somehow, some way tied into the LGBT community. How has this happened? And can you give NAGLREP members some thoughts on how they can combine their advocacy work to their business?
Sure. Each year in the fourth quarter, I sit down and I start at that point looking at all the graphs of where business came from. Every single deal is sourced in a way that I can track where it comes from quickly. I do that as I go throughout the year. And it's fascinating to me how my business has grown in the last few years as I have become more active as an advocate. And you're correct. If I look at my business, it's not that 70% of it is a buyer or seller who is LGBTQ. But as I said a little earlier in this podcast, it could be brothers, sisters, friends, coworkers, family members, or it could be that I did a presentation at a hospital or a school or a community event sharing my story about Leo. And through that, I meet someone and network with someone, and then they end up, friending me on Facebook, and I sell them a house and relationships develop. I think that what the takeaway is that when people know that you are passionate about something and they know who you are, and when you're involved and you are in front of people, it definitely can help you marry your business and your passions. So I try to encourage the agents that I work with on my team and new agents to figure out what it is that they love and go do those things. Spend their social time there. You know, that's how they can spend their time. But of course, don't be a secret agent while you're there. So anything that I'm doing, even if it's LGBTQ related, real estate is somehow being introduced to that conversation probably at least 9 times out of 10, whether that's just because I have a conversation and hand someone a business card to connect with them in a different way, or I ask them if I can friend them on Facebook. But yeah, it's interesting how things can really take off as you're building your network of people. And the best benefit of it, David, is that I have this beautiful opportunity to work with people that I just thoroughly love and enjoy.
We just heard from somebody who leads a team that had 130 sides last year. You're an amazing new member of NAGLREP, an amazing ally and advocate, but more importantly, you're an amazing mom. And on behalf of the 2,500 members of NAGLREP, will you please give Leo a hug for all of us and all of your family? And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure was all mine, David. I appreciate it.
Well, we're all fans of Leo. We're fans of Lisa. This has been NAGLREP Success. Until next time, I'm David Cerroti.